Welcome to the deep dive. Picture this. You're sitting at home. Maybe you've got this big dream of speaking English fluently, but you're feeling a bit stuck. No teacher, no classroom right there with you. You've probably tried the apps, watched the videos, maybe even, crammed some grammar rules, but something feels missing, right? You feel, well, alone with this big, exciting dream.
That sense of isolation, that feeling of being disconnected when you're trying to tackle something as personal and interactive as learning a new language, it's incredibly common.
Exactly. It's a hurdle a lot of people face. And the core question that this deep dive source material grapples with head on is, can you really learn English effectively alone like this?
And the powerful answer this source provides is a resounding yes. It's not just possible, it's a path with unique advantages.
Which is fantastic news. So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack this source, which isn't just theoretical. It lays out simple, actionable steps, smart techniques, and, well, even a routine that you could literally start implementing today. The whole idea is about transforming your home environment into your own dynamic English classroom.
And what's particularly insightful from the source is the emphasis that learning doesn't require an audience or, a formal setting. It can profoundly begin and progress right there in your most private space, even when that initial fear or uncertainty is present.
So let's dive into the journey this source describes, because it starts in a place that might feel incredibly vulnerable, even a little strange at first.
Okay.
It's about taking that first step by simply naming the objects around you. This is a table. This is a chair. Just stating the obvious in English.
And the source frames this not just as a vocabulary exercise, but as the crucial first physical act of connecting the English sound to your immediate reality. It sort of bypasses overthinking and grounds the language in your environment.
Then the source talks about something equally fundamental, but maybe less obvious.
Yeah.
The power of listening like a child. Not trying to dissect every word, but immersing yourself in the sounds, the rhythm, the sheer music of English. Letting your ears become familiar before full comprehension kicks in.
It's about training your auditory system, developing that intuitive ear for the language's flow and patterns, which the source highlights as a critical, often overlooked, foundational step.
And discovering how reading even short, simple stories completely changes the game. How does just reading sentences like, Tom goes to the park, actually shift things?
Well, reading, as the source explains, isn't just about consuming words. It's about encountering them in living context.
Right.
This naturally builds vocabulary retention and, importantly, develops an unconscious sense of what sounds right grammatically and structurally, a feeling you often can't get from just studying rules.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting with a technique the source champions. Shadowing. This is described as repeating after a native speaker immediately, like a linguistic shadow. Copying not just the words, but the intonation, the rhythm, the tone.
Yeah.
What's the power in that immediate mimicry?
Shadowing, according to the source, is a direct pathway to improving pronunciation and fluency. It trains your mouth and ears simultaneously, helping you embody the sounds and rhythm of native speech patterns,
Okay.
bridging the gap between passive listening and active speaking.
Which naturally leads to what the source describes as a brave but essential act.
Yeah.
Talking to yourself.
Yeah,
Turning those inner thoughts, the running commentary in your head, into spoken English.
your private, judgment-free zone. The source positions self-talk as an incredibly effective way to build fluency and confidence because it allows for unlimited practice and experimentation without the pressure of external interaction.
And then there's using technology, not just passively scrolling, but turning your devices into active learning tools.
Right.
Changing phone settings, using voice typing, translation apps, subtitles, making your phone less of a distraction and more of a dynamic learning partner.
Leveraging the technology you already interact with daily. The source shows how simple adjustments can turn these familiar tools into constant, low-effort immersion devices.
And perhaps the most crucial insight from the source, creating small, powerful daily habits. Tiny actions that make English an automatic part of your life, carrying you forward even when motivation dips.
Consistency, the source argues compellingly, is the real engine of independent learning. It's about integrating the language into the fabric of your day, making it sustainable.
Because, as the source powerfully demonstrates, learning doesn't stop at home. In fact, home can be exactly where it starts and takes you further than you might imagine.
Exactly. Home provides the ideal, safe environment to build that initial momentum and confidence before you even feel ready to use the language publicly.
So stick with us as we deep dive into this source and explore how one person transformed their personal space into a profoundly effective English learning environment, drawing lessons that you can apply starting now.
Let's do it.
So let's really get into that starting point the source describes. That first day, sitting alone at home, wanting to learn English, but feeling completely overwhelmed and maybe, a little afraid, the source is very honest about that initial heaviness.
Yes, it doesn't sugarcoat the feeling. It acknowledges the internal voice saying, this is too hard, or I don't know where to start, contrasted with the deeper desire, the heart saying, try.
And the very first action the source takes,
Yeah.
looking around the room and just naming objects.
Yeah.
This is a table, this is a chair, this is a window. This sounds almost comical, doesn't it? But the source insists this is where it began.
It's fascinating because it feels so simple, yet the source portrays it as a profoundly brave act. It's the first moment you make the language physical, attaching it to the concrete world around you.
Right.
It's a step away from abstract study and towards using the language, even if it's just whispering to your furniture.
And the source describes that feeling of it being strange, maybe shy. But you keep going. Into the kitchen. This is a cup. This is a spoon. Talking to everything, almost like giving your world an English name tag.
It turns your entire home into an interactive vocabulary list, but one you're actively speaking to. This constant low-stakes repetition in a familiar environment is key, according to the source.
And then the mirror conversation. Looking at your own face, smiling, saying, hello, how are you? The source mentions laughing because it feels silly, but also feeling good, asking and answering your own questions.
That first English conversation, even if it's with yourself in the mirror, is highlighted by the source as incredibly significant.
Really?
Yeah, it's using the language in a simulated dialogue, practicing the back and forth, building confidence in your own voice using English.
You write new words, speak them out loud, multiple times. The voice isn't perfect, the source admits, but it's your voice. And it matters. Why is that so important even if no one hears it?
Because the source emphasizes that building confidence starts internally. It doesn't require external validation.
Okay.
It begins the moment you choose to speak, to use your voice in the new language, regardless of the audience or perceived perfection. You are building a relationship with your own English voice.
And the source is crystal clear about mistakes.
Okay.
You will make them. Forget words, say them wrong. But the key is to not stop.
Exactly.
Mistakes are part of the learning process, not a reason to quit.
Embracing mistakes as inevitable and essential steps forward is a mindset the source credits with allowing them to continue.
Integrating English into the simplest daily tasks also comes into play early on. I brush my teeth, I make tea, I pour the tea. Narrating your actions.
This is where the language starts weaving into the fabric of your day. It stops being this separate, daunting subject and becomes, well, a commentary on your real life. It normalizes English.
What's the biggest advantage of learning alone like this, according to the source?
The source highlights the safety and freedom. You can speak as slowly as you need, repeat things endlessly. There's no pressure, no one to make you feel embarrassed.
Right.
You feel safe, free to experiment, to build this new part of yourself without judgment. The source explicitly states confidence doesn't start on a stage. It starts in your room, even when you're afraid.
So that first day isn't about mastering grammar or vocabulary. It's about something far more fundamental.
It's about learning to begin, learning to speak even when you're alone and scared. And the source's powerful takeaway from this initial stage is that by simply starting, by making that first sound, fear begins its slow transformation into strength.
Okay, let's move from those first brave steps to another foundational technique the source explores. Listening like a child. The source has this realization, how do babies learn their first language? They don't hit the grammar books.
Exactly. They are simply immersed, surrounded by sound, constantly listening, without the cognitive burden of needing to understand every single word immediately.
So the source decides to replicate this. Just listen every day, focusing on the sounds, the rhythm, the musicality of English, without the pressure of full comprehension.
This stage, as described in the source, is about training your auditory system, sensitizing your ears to the unique cadence and phonemes of English. It's preparing the ground for understanding later.
The source talks about finding simple English podcasts, short audio clips, or slow conversation videos on YouTube. Listening carefully, sometimes pausing to try and repeat short sentences.
Choosing content specifically designed for learners is a practical tip from the source here. It makes this immersive listening manageable and, less overwhelming.
This is presented as a new kind of listening, not just for entertainment, but purposeful, focused listening. Listening to copy, to understand, to grow the ear's familiarity.
Active, engaged listening, even if the content is simple. You're listening with the intention of absorbing the language's patterns, not just its meaning.
And making it a habit. English audio while cooking, cleaning, walking. Hands busy, but ears always learning.
Seamless integration into existing routines. This is crucial for sustainability, turning mundane tasks into consistent exposure opportunities.
The source found listening to the same story multiple times was powerful. Why revisit the same material?
Repetition deepens the learning. The source realized that each time they listened to the same content, they picked up more a missed word, a subtle intonation. It builds confidence as understanding increases with each listen.
And crucially, the source acknowledges there will be times you don't understand much. But that's okay.
Right.
You don't stop or feel discouraged. Why is pushing through that lack of comprehension important?
Because the source believes that even without explicit understanding, the brain and ears are still processing the language, getting used to its structure and sounds, much like a baby's brain is doing. It's building a foundation below the level of conscious awareness.
And even listening to bedtime stories in English before sleeping, just letting the sound wash over you.
Extending the immersion into downtime, allowing the subconscious to continue processing the language.
The core message here is profound. Don't overstudy. Just listen everywhere, constantly, like a child. And the fascinating outcome the source describes is that slowly you start to think in English. The language begins to form in your mind even when you're not actively listening.
It's the natural byproduct of consistent, low-pressure exposure. The language starts becoming an internal voice, not just an external sound.
So the source's big takeaway for this stage is clear. If you want to speak well, you must first listen well. Listening isn't passive. It's an active, powerful tool. Your ears truly are your first teachers.
Train them, use them, trust the process of immersion. It's the gateway.
Following that intensive focus on input through listening, the source found that reading became the next transformative step.
Okay.
There's this idea mentioned, attributed to a teacher, claiming reading is the secret to fast learning. That's a bold statement.
It is, and the source really puts it to the test through personal experience, finding that it held a lot of truth.
How do they start? By finding easy English stories for beginners. Simple sentences, basic vocabulary, like Tom wakes up, he eats breakfast.
Starting with material where you already understand most of the words is key, according to the source. It reduces frustration and allows you to focus on the flow and context.
And reading slowly, out loud, speaking every word. The source describes this feeling happy, not difficult, like, okay, I can do this. Finishing in minutes, and reading again, understanding more. A third time, maybe faster, the voice smoother.
The source found that reading aloud turned reading into a combined speaking and comprehension practice. And rereading allowed for deeper processing and confidence building.
The source says they didn't just read words, they lived inside this story. What does that mean?
It means reading engaged their imagination. They weren't just decoding text, they were visualizing the scenes, connecting emotionally with the simple narrative. This makes the language feel more alive and memorable than, dry sentences.
So the decision was made, read every day.
Yeah.
But not daunting novels, just easy English stories, 10 or 15 minutes. The goal wasn't finishing books, but enjoying the words and growing.
Again, emphasizing consistency and enjoyment over quantity or difficulty, making reading a sustainable, pleasurable habit.
Reading more stories, simple tales, but full of life. And then the aha moment, noticing words appearing again and again, like walk.
Right.
Seeing it in different stories, different contexts.
This is the power of contextual repetition that reading offers. The source realized they weren't memorizing lists. Their brain was naturally learning and reinforcing vocabulary by encountering words multiple times in varied situations.
You don't need to force yourself to remember or write it down. Just seeing it often in different sentences makes the brain remember naturally. That's the real secret reading unlocked for the source.
It's trusting the natural acquisition process. Reading provides the rich, varied input required for this kind of organic learning to occur.
You learn words in context, the source emphasizes, not just a single word meaning, but how native speakers actually use it, what other words it pairs with.
Exactly.
And this builds an intuitive sense of correctness. You don't need a grammar rule. You feel if a sentence sounds right.
This is a huge benefit of reading. developing that feel for natural language patterns, collocations, and implicit grammar, which is incredibly difficult to achieve through explicit study alone.
What about words you don't know? The source mentions stopping, checking a dictionary, reading the meaning and example, then reading the sentence again, but not writing the word down or making a list.
The source's approach was minimalist. The focus was on immediate comprehension within the story's flow, not exhaustive vocabulary study.
Oh, okay.
Trusting that if a word was important or common, they would encounter it again through continued reading and listening.
Reading out loud was also key. Sitting in front of the mirror, reading the story, watching their mouth move, hearing their voice. Again, not caring about mistakes, viewing it purely as practice.
Combining the visual and auditory feedback with the act of speaking, reinforcing the connection between the written word, its sound, and the physical production.
And the feedback loop. Reading helps speaking. The more you read, the easier words and sentences come when you speak. You don't translate as much. You start thinking in English because you're reading in English.
Demonstrating the direct link between input reading and improved output speaking. Reading provides the models for fluent expression.
After just a week, the force felt noticeably more confident. Enjoying the stories, guessing meanings, English started to feel less like a stranger, more like a friend.
A beautiful description of the relationship with the language evolving through consistent engagement.
And reading became a core daily habit. Short stories in the morning, maybe a longer one in the evening, rereading for fluency.
Solidifying reading as a non-negotiable part of the daily routine.
So the source's powerful message is clear. If you're practicing at home, start reading. Easy, simple, enjoyable stories. Don't get bogged down in grammar or huge words. Just read consistently, even for 10 minutes. Read with your heart, your voice, your mind.
A compelling call to action for reading as a central pillar of independent learning.
And the promise from the source is that one day you'll simply find you speak better, think faster, understand more. Reading isn't just about learning words. It's about accessing a whole new world through English.
Positioning reading not just as a skill builder, but as a portal to broader engagement.
Okay, so we've talked about input through listening and reading and the first steps of speaking. But the source introduces a technique that really bridges the gap between input and spoken output in a physical way, something called shadowing.
Ah, yes, shadowing. This technique is described in the source as almost physically training your mouth and ears simultaneously to match native speech patterns.
The source recounts listening to a simple audio clip like, "My name is Emily, I live in New York." And the immediate action was pausing and repeating that exact sentence right away.
That immediate repetition is key. As the source defines it, you are a shadow following the native speaker's voice as closely as possible. You're mimicking everything, the words, the sound, the tone, the rhythm, the intonation.
And the source admits feeling nervous at first, like it would sound strange or they get it wrong. But the realization was, no one is watching. I'm at home. I'm safe here.
The home environment provides the low-pressure laboratory needed to practice techniques that might feel awkward or exposed in a public setting.
The approach was structured. Choose short clips, maybe 1 minute, often with subtitles. First, just listen, then read the subtitles. Then pause after each sentence and repeat, sentence by sentence.
Breaking down the technique into manageable steps makes it less intimidating and allows for focused practice on each element: listening, comprehension via subtitles, and then physical repetition.
Mistakes happen, of course.
Yeah.
Saying words wrong, forgetting parts of the sentence. But the source's rule was, don't stop.
Right.
Go back, try again, speak louder, clearer, with intention.
Persistence is crucial. The benefit comes from the repeated attempt to match the target sound, not from getting it perfect the first time.
And after just a few days of this, the source noticed tangible changes. What were they?
Improved pronunciation, a tongue that felt more agile, a voice sounding more natural, and the ability to string full sentences together more easily. A palpable increase in speaking confidence.
Shadowing helped teach what real English sounds like beyond the textbook. Learning how words blend together, the natural intonation curves.
It captures the nuances of spoken English that written text or simple vocabulary practice cannot. It's learning the music of the language at a practical level.
And the accessibility is a huge advantage. Just a phone, headphones, and a quiet corner. Doing it anywhere, anytime, morning, evening, even whispering while walking alone.
Its flexibility makes it incredibly easy to integrate into a busy schedule, reinforcing the habit aspect.
The source even used shadowing strategically, like before a school interview, finding videos about interview, shadowing lines until they felt ready.
A great example of using the technique for a specific goal-oriented purpose, showing its practical power beyond general fluency.
The source's powerful conclusion here is you don't actually need to speak with someone to improve your speaking. You can shadow. You can copy, train your mouth, ears, and brain simultaneously.
This challenges a very common belief and offers an empowering alternative for those learning alone.
Shadowing isn't always easy initially, but the source found it became fun, powerful, like a daily workout for the language muscles. If you want to speak like native speakers, you need to practice speaking like them. Shadowing gives you that opportunity.
It's a direct, mimicry-based path towards approximating native-like pronunciation and rhythm.
It transforms your quiet room into an English practice studio, your phone into a relentless pronunciation coach, and your voice into the instrument you're training.
Powerful metaphors highlighting how this technique repurposes everyday elements into learning tools.
So don't let the awkwardness stop you. Pick a short video, play, pause, repeat. Just 10 minutes a day, as the source suggests, and you will feel the difference, a stronger voice, clearer words, English feeling more alive in your mouth.
Encouragement to overcome the initial hesitation and commit to the physical practice.
Following the practice of shadowing, which involves repetition after others, the source moves on to something that feels perhaps even more vulnerable when you're alone, talking to yourself in English.
Taking that internal stream of consciousness and giving it an external English voice.
Yeah. The source describes sitting alone, house quiet, mind active, feeling that need to practice speaking, but no one else around. So the conversation begins with themselves.
Recognizing the internal drive to produce the language and finding a way to fulfill that need immediately and independently.
It feels strange, right? Saying, hello, how are you? And answering yourself, laughing at the absurdity of it, but also feeling a sense of liberation. Not waiting for a partner, not waiting for the perfect opportunity, just speaking.
This is the source seizing control of their learning, removing the dependency on others and creating their own practice opportunities on demand.
Walking around the room, narrating actions. I open the door. I close the window. Simple things, but spoken aloud. Speaking slowly, clearly, hearing their own voice.
Turning the immediate environment into a constant source of prompts for simple, descriptive language. It integrates English into physical movement.
And the mirror practice again, but this time for conversation. Asking yourself questions, telling yourself about your day. Today I woke up early, I made tea. The source felt like they were talking to a friend, and that friend was themselves.
The mirror acts as a visual anchor, externalizing the internal monologue and turning it into a simulated conversation with a reflection.
Even walking outside, the practice continued, not necessarily aloud, but mentally, describing the surroundings in English. The dog is running, the sky is blue. The inner voice starting to think in English.
Expanding the self-talk practice beyond the home, integrating it into observational thought processes in the real world.
This is how you train your fluency, the source realized, by constantly talking to yourself. You don't need perfect grammar or a vast vocabulary. You just need words and the courage to use them alone.
Reducing the barriers to practice to just two elements, existing vocabulary and internal bravery.
Mistakes are inevitable, the source insists. Forgetting words, mixing sentences. But you don't stop. Correct yourself. Try again. Smile. The goal isn't flawless speech. It's continuous practice.
Reinforcing the source's overall philosophy, prioritize consistency and effort over unattainable perfection.
Talking to yourself about different scenarios. Ordering food, asking for directions, imaginary conversations, sometimes playing multiple roles.
Using imagination and role-playing to practice situational language in a risk-free environment.
And the change happens gradually, but noticeably. More confident speech, sentences coming faster, English feeling more natural.
The cumulative effect of consistent self-talk practice leading to increased automaticity and fluency.
A powerful moment described is realizing you're talking to yourself while cooking, describing chopping vegetables, stirring soup, and it just happens.
Yeah.
You're thinking and speaking in English without conscious effort.
This is the breakthrough the source highlights. When the practice becomes automatic, the language becomes truly integrated.
It's your own free, private classroom. The source suggests talking in the morning, at night, whenever you're alone. The more you speak, the better you'll become.
Simple, direct correlation. More practice equals more improvement.
Talking to yourself builds the connection between thinking in English and speaking English. It teaches bravery and self-reliance.
Highlighting the cognitive link being strengthened and the psychological benefit of self-reliance.
So the call to action from the source is immediate. Don't wait. Look around, name things, narrate your day, Ask and answer questions aloud. Use the mirror. Use your mind. There's no one watching or judging. You are free to practice.
Empowering the listener to start this simple, powerful practice right away.
And the source is confident that the more you talk to yourself, the less afraid you'll be to talk to others. Your confidence grows from the inside out, all powered by your own voice.
Connecting internal practice to overcoming external fear and emphasizing the source of confidence.
Moving from these personal practices, the source then explores the potential of something we all have around us. Technology.
Yeah.
Sitting with your phone and asking, can this screen actually help me learn English?
Recognizing the untapped potential in familiar, everyday devices.
The first simple step the source took, changing the phone's language settings to English.
An immediate, constant immersion technique. It forces interaction with the language just to navigate your device.
Your phone starts speaking to you in English, seeing English words every time you unlock it. It feels new, maybe a little confusing initially, but the source describes it as the exciting start of something significant.
Turning a passive device into a persistent source of English exposure.
The conscious decision was made. Use the phone not just for entertainment, but strategically for learning, making it your English teacher.
A deliberate shift in mindset regarding technology use, viewing it as a tool for growth.
Searching for language apps, finding ones for vocabulary with audio and pictures, doing short, fun 10-minute sessions.
Utilizing apps for targeted, low-pressure practice.
Discovering apps that offer pronunciation feedback. Saying a sentence, seeing a green pic. The source felt a real sense of accomplishment from this immediate validation.
Highlighting how technology can provide feedback that is difficult to get when learning completely alone.
Using YouTube, but specifically for easy English listening and repetition. Slow videos, pausing, repeating, watching the same video multiple times.
Leveraging a massive free resource for both passive listening and active speaking practice through repetition shadowing.
And then a clever use of built-in phone features. Voice typing. Speaking English sentences into a notes app and the phone transcribing them. If it types the wrong word, you know your pronunciation needs work.
A creative, accessible way to get immediate pronunciation feedback and practice clarity of speech.
Using the dictionary app when reading or listening, looking up a word, seeing its meaning and examples. Again, the source didn't obsess over memorization, just focused on understanding in the moment.
Integrating dictionary use into the flow of consumption, reinforcing learning through context rather than isolated study.
Even using Google Translate, but judiciously. Not to translate everything, but to check understanding or hear the pronunciation of a specific word, and then shadowing it.
Treating translation tools as supplementary resources for checking and confirming, rather than a primary method of learning.
The key wasn't just having technology, but using it with a plan. Setting specific times, like 30 minutes morning and evening, dedicated only to English learning on the device, free from other distractions.
The source stresses discipline is required. Technology is a tool, but it needs a focused approach.
Music became a learning tool too. Finding songs with lyrics, listening, reading, singing along, helping with rhythm and pronunciation in an enjoyable way.
Transforming entertainment into productive practice.
Using English subtitles when watching movies, initially with subtitles, then without, then checking back.
A layered approach to media consumption that builds listening comprehension progressively.
Engaging with voice assistants, asking simple questions and getting replies in English, using the language for practical interaction.
Practicing functional language and understanding spoken responses, even if from an AI.
The source's realization is that technology, used smartly and with intention, becomes your personal, free classroom. All you need is the device, internet, and the will to learn.
Emphasizing the accessibility and cost-effectiveness of technology-driven independent learning.
Use the apps, the videos, the voice tools, subtitles, settings, everything at your disposal.
Right.
But use it with purpose. One focused activity each day, even a short one, because every small step powered by these tools builds your big dream.
Reinforcing the small steps, big results philosophy applied to technology use.
Your phone isn't just a device for communication or entertainment. It can be your daily teacher, your practice mirror, your learning partner on this journey. The source found using it smartly unlocked significant progress.
And this naturally leads us to what the source identifies as perhaps the single most important factor for long-term independent learning: creating English habits at home.
It's the difference maker. The source realized that isolated bursts of effort weren't enough. It was consistent, embedded practice that drove real progress.
The source describes starting small, picking up the phone while still in bed, opening a simple English story, reading just one paragraph, saying it aloud.
This is the source integrating English into the very start of their day, making it a gentle, non-negotiable morning ritual. 5 minutes, but powerful.
The key insight learned is this. You don't need endless study hours or a perfect plan. You need habits.
Right.
Small, repeatable daily actions.
The core principle of the sources method: consistency trumps intensity.
Because if you repeat small things daily, they become automatic, like brushing your teeth or making coffee. You just do them.
Normalizing language practice by comparing it to ingrained daily routines.
So after brushing your teeth, you talk to yourself in the mirror in English. Good morning, what a beautiful day, I will make tea. Simple sentences that wake up your English brain and set the tone.
Linking a new habit, self-talk, to an established one, brushing teeth, makes it easier to remember and implement.
When cooking breakfast, play English audio. Just listen. Hands busy, ears open. The kitchen environment becomes a cue. Okay, time for English listening.
Creating environmental triggers for specific English habits.
A short walk in the afternoon? Think in English. Describe what you see. Simple thoughts, consistent practice.
Turning passive observation into active mental practice.
An enjoyable evening habit? After dinner, a short English video. Cartoons, interviews, slow conversations. Watch, maybe shadow a few lines. It's part of winding down, but with a purpose.
Combining relaxation or entertainment with a targeted English practice.
Writing 1 or 2 new words in a small notebook daily. Not lists, just a few key ones. Reviewing them later. Not forcing memory, just gentle exposure.
A minimalist, sustainable approach to vocabulary acquisition that fits within a habit framework.
Even labeling objects around the room, mirror, door, lamp. Saying the word every time you see the label.
Another simple visual reinforcement technique embedded in the environment.
Reflecting on the week in English. Talking to yourself about accomplishments. This week I read 2 stories, shadowed for an hour. Connecting habits to progress and feeling proud.
Using self-talk to consolidate learning and reinforce positive behavior.
The source acknowledges there were days they didn't feel like it, tired, lazy. But the habits provided momentum. They whispered, just do one small thing, just 5 minutes. And doing that one small thing often reignited motivation.
Highlighting the power of habits to overcome motivational slumps. They provide this structure that carries you through.
Habits carry you forward even when you feel weak, the source found. They weave English into your life's fabric. Don't try to cram, build a small routine.
The recurring message: consistency and small habits are the engine of progress.
Practice for 5 minutes in the morning, a short video in the evening, 1 story a day, thinking in English on a walk, talking to yourself before bed. Start with 1, add others gradually. Your life transforms. English stops being a subject you study and becomes a companion.
Providing concrete examples and illustrating the cumulative effect of stacking habits.
When English becomes a daily habit, it becomes second nature. You don't study it anymore, you live it. It's not about finding more time, it's about building more consistency.
The powerful shift from structured study to integrated living of the language.
The source's final, memorable comparison. 5 minutes a day is exponentially better than 1 intense hour once a week. So make English your habit, your morning friend, your evening song. Let it grow with you, day by day.
A powerful, concise summary, emphasizing the value of consistent small efforts. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive into learning English alone at home, pulling from the wisdom of this source, we've really seen a clear and empowering path emerge.
The source makes a very compelling case that independent English learning is not only achievable, but incredibly effective when approached with consistent, focused application of simple methods.
We journey through the courage it takes to make those first sounds and names, even feeling silly, right up to weaving English into daily habits. We explored the immersive power of listening like a child and how reading simple stories changes your relationship with the language, building intuition. Plus, the practical self-directed techniques like shadowing for pronunciation and talking to yourself for fluency.
Right.
And how technology, used smartly, isn't just a tool, but a partner.
It all circles back to that crucial insight the source drives home. Forget the idea of needing to learn fast or aiming for some external standard of perfection. The real power is in the journey itself, the unwavering consistency you build, and the compounding effect of those seemingly small daily steps.
Absolutely. That idea that just 5 minutes a day is profoundly better than trying to do one intense hour once a week.
Yeah.
It really redefines what effective practice looks like. Consistency is the engine.
It really is.
We saw the personal transformation the source described. Facing that initial fear, allowing for mistakes while pushing through, watching English slowly shift from a stranger to a familiar friend, and feeling that confidence build authentically from the inside.
And the home environment, in the source's experience, offers a unique advantage. You truly are both the student and the teacher, granting incredible freedom and control to tailor the learning path precisely to your own pace and needs.
Right. Your home becomes your school, your phone becomes this incredibly powerful tool, your own voice becomes your most accessible guide, and your dream is the light pulling you forward through the quiet moments. You truly are not alone in this journey, even when you're sitting by yourself in your room.
And as the source brings its experience to a close, it leaves us, and you, the listener, with a direct and thought-provoking question. What is the one English habit you will start from today?
That's a fantastic question to leave with. After hearing about these techniques, the journey, and the power of habits, consider that one small step, that one single habit that you can begin implementing right now, drawing inspiration from the source's experience.
That single step could be the very beginning of your most effective learning journey yet.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.